just a few days ago, I was, my son Carrie and I, we were on the phone together, we each with our computer, and we're planning our trip to the Middle East in February, 4 weeks. And so I was searching for maybe taking a side trip. We take cheap trips. We go on buses and trains, the local stuff. And I was looking for a side trip to Bethlehem. Discovered there's 2 Bethlehems. And anyway, then I thought, well, for an extra 2.5 hours, what are we going to see but a bunch of Christian churches, because there's no manger left there. So that's Bethlehem today. It's just a town like any other town with a bunch of Christian churches. But Bethlehem, I guess, has always intrigued me ever since I was a kid. This song I've always loved. Something peaceful about this song. O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Above thy deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by. For Christ was born of Mary and gathered all above, while mortals sleep, the angels keep their watch of wondering love. This is the Bethlehem that we like to focus on at Christmas time. The silent Bethlehem. And praises sing to God the King, and peace on earth to men and women. I wish. Because the Bethlehem Christmas is anything but peace on earth to men and women. It's actually a horror story of pain and suffering. It's anything but peace. The true Bethlehem Christmas. Truth is, little town of Bethlehem was made miserable by the birth of Jesus. You know the story. The streets were running red with blood, and the fathers and mothers' wails for their murdered children. This is how the Bible does Bethlehem. Let there be peace on earth, we sing. Let it begin with me. Well, King Herod the Great, he was threatened by all this talk about a new king of the Jews. So King Herod thought he would act like a king, and he took no chances, and he murdered every young boy in Bethlehem and the surrounding area. And scholars say that was anything from about age 2 and down. No chances were taken. You know, Christmas time, we have Christmas cards, and we sing Christmas songs. And we sing and we talk of a very sentimental Christmas. And we watch those Hallmark card Christmas movies. She gets the guy and he gets the girl, and they live happily ever after. It seems like Christmas brings out the best in pretty much every one of us, doesn't it? But the first Christmas brought out the worst in King Herod. Matthew's Christmas pageant doesn't end with tinsel-covered angels proclaiming Jesus and peace on earth. Actually, it ends with Rachel weeping for her slaughtered babies. The Bethlehem Christmas is the real Bethlehem. And it's the Bethlehem we don't want to hear. We don't want to hear. Herod joins with other world leaders in the last century that had no problem killing children to get their political ideals. Pol Pot, Hitler, Idi Amin, Stalin, Mao Zedong, and even ISIS leader al-Baghdadi. These men didn't care about children. They had political ideals to accomplish. We don't like this Christmas story. We prefer the one about the shepherds and the angels, the manger, and of course the baby Jesus. And so Christmas has become kind of an escapist fantasy to us. It's that one day of the year where almost everybody turns from a Scrooge into someone as good as Tiny Tim. And when it's Christmas time, we don't want to be honest about the real world that's going on around us. We don't want to look at it. We want to look at the nice things. We prefer the shepherds and the angels and the manger, the 3 wise men, and of course, baby Jesus. It's hard to be honest. But the Bible always tells the truth, and the truth is A Bethlehem Christmas. Even so-called Bible thumpers have been proclaiming that we should take up arms and have a civil war against those evil Democrats. Oh, the Bible says, come even unto Bethlehem, but we don't need to go to Bethlehem to find this kind of stuff in this world. Sometimes it's even scary when I think about it long enough. See, at the end of the nativity, the angels, they go back to wherever they came from, and the shepherds, they go back to their sheep, and the 3 wise men, they go back east, and baby Jesus and his family, they become refugees and immigrants to the country of Egypt. And what's left behind are the parents weeping for their Jewish babies, weeping. And our nose gets rubbed in the politics of it all. It was all about politics and power and remaining in power. It's all it is, and it always seems to be when it comes to governments. There's blood and there's pain and there's death before the Bible lets us leave Bethlehem. It's part of the Christmas story that we do not want to hear. But even though we don't want to hear this Christmas story, it's the story we need to hear. Because any God who is not willing to come to Bethlehem is no help to us. No help to us. If a God is going to save us, that God has to come down, 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 down to Bethlehem, to us. Because we're not going to get up to him. That's for sure. John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth, and we beheld his glory. In the Bible, God's glory is his character. We saw the character of the Father when we saw Jesus. The Father's character. And Christians call this the incarnation. The Almighty God, the creator of heaven and earth, takes on flesh and blood like us. And he comes down to us, and he doesn't just bring forgiveness, he comes to bring a reconciliation between his Father and himself and us. To make us friends again. And he did it for us. He did it. He entered our pain, our suffering. He entered into our world for us. My brother-in-law gave us a Christmas gift one year, a CD. And it's kind of a unique CD. It's kind of his style of music, which is kind of a little off on the edge there. But there's 2 songs on here that are downright depressing. I mean, downright depressing. This one song, you can't forget it. There's this guy, and he's madly in love. And guess what? Just before Christmas, she gives him his walking papers. And he is distraught. And he is crushed. And he's just, his heart is just broken. What a depressing song. But we've all been there. I'm sure you've all been there at least once, maybe several times. I know I have. Your heart is broken. If it's love, why does it have to hurt so much? Why does love have to be so painful? Because the truth is that relationships always require some risk. We don't know if they're going to fail. We don't know if we're going to get cheated on or betrayed or rejected, and it hurts so bad. In fact, the more you love, the more it hurts. Is that not true? The more we love, the more it hurts. You see, love requires freedom. It requires the ability to choose love, or it's worthless. But if we can choose love, guess what? We can also choose not to love like King Herod chose. And there's always hurt when someone chooses not to love. But God, if he's a God of love, also has to be a God of freedom, free choice. That's the God that we serve and we love. But when there's free choice, you and I are always going to have Bethlehems in our life. I want you to enjoy this video clip.
How do we know which one he is?
The one I kiss is Jesus.
My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink all of it, then your will be done. But there's another way. I am so afraid I cannot endure this, my Father.
The final act begins, Jesus. There will be no reprieve handed down from your Father. He's willing for you to go through this every painful step of the way.
If it is his will. His will.
His will for you is to be flogged, spit on, humiliated, dragged through the streets, laughed at, tried, convicted, and crucified. Seen crucifixion, but you never felt it. You never felt the pain of nails through your hands, of nails through your feet. It's agony. It's hours in agony. The weight of your own body crushes your lungs. You'll suffocate slowly. And you will endure this alone. Look at them over there. They can't even stay awake. And they'll run as soon as Judas shows up. You know I'm right. And it's all in vain, Jesus.
No. Not in vain. Through me, God will reveal his love for mankind.
God, that unseen, heartless, burn in hell, watch your children starve, God.
Not in vain.
Oh, yes. In vain. Let me show you the future. Crusades in your name. Jesus Christ, they shout when they kill.
In the name of Jesus Christ! In the name of Jesus Christ!
Killing for Christ will be a big business through the centuries, Christ Jesus.
And this is what you're dying for. This is what your agony will give them. Another reason to kill and torture each other. Don't you think they have enough reasons already? Without you going through all this, Jesus? It's so easy. It is so easy, Jesus. Just ask him to come get you. The world at war. What a concept.
Why?
Why? Who knows? That guy doesn't like the pimple on the nose of that guy, but you can stop it tonight. You can stop it. Come down off that cross they have waiting for you. Why die in agony when you can take control? Make the earth a paradise, and poverty, and hunger, and war. You can do it. It's within your power. Right now.
No, I cannot.
Oh, yes,
It is
you
not
can.
God's will.
Is it not God's will to end the war? What kind of God is that?
One who loves mankind so much that he gives them freedom of choice. He has not created them so he can be their dictator. He gives them the choice of doing good or evil.
And this is what they choose.
Yes. I forgive you.
I don't want your forgiveness. Look, here comes Judas and his mob. Jesus, you don't even have to bow down to me. I'm not even asking you that. Just call to your father and ask him to deliver you. Tell him you don't want this. He won't make you go through this. You know he won't. Just wave your hand and you'll be home, safe. Do it. Now, you know what I showed you was true. You are going to die in vain. You don't have a plan. I do. I've seen it. Nothing changes. They don't have the capacity to love like you want them to. This will never happen. Just lift your hands, Jesus, and wave these all away. Go home, Jesus. Go home to your Father. Now. Don't die in vain. Don't die alone.
I'm not alone. I'm with my Father.
You will die in vain,
No.
Jesus.
I am in the hearts of men. I will die for the everlasting kindness of the human heart created by the Father, so that men will make his image shine once again. And those who will want to will find in me the strength to love until the end. Friend, do what you're here to do. Betrayed with a kiss.
This is why Jesus came down to Bethlehem, down to us, because he knows that we all start our lives with King Herod on our hearts, on the throne of our heart. And we have a choice which king we want to sit on that throne of our heart. We have that choice. And because Jesus says that the love of the Father will shine through a human heart once again. But we first have to recognize that Herod is on the throne of our heart. The husband who is pushing and slapping, belittling his wife to gain power in the household still has King Herod on the throne of his heart. Any parent who abusively tries to get kids to obey still has King Herod on the throne of his heart. Any boyfriend who pressures his girlfriend into sexual favors still has King Herod on the throne of his heart. We don't have to have King Herod on the throne of our heart. Jesus came down to dethrone him. It's our choice who we have on the throne of our heart. At Bethlehem, we see the prelude of something that came later, and that's Calvary. You see, baby Jesus was spared Bethlehem so that he could go to Calvary. And the one who we call King of Kings went head to head with the King Herods of this world. And there was more politics, and more blood, and death, and violence. And another King Herod thought he would get his way with Mary's baby boy. Matthew says he did it for us. He did it all for us. It was done so that we could be saved, so that we can have life. It began in Bethlehem, but it ended in Calvary. And Herod thought he'd won. Herod thought he'd won. But Jesus declared, "It is finished," because God came down to Bethlehem. There's an old song, a Gaither song that I haven't heard for a while, but I used to play it all the time. I used to just crank it up and just feast on these words. There's a line that's been drawn through the ages. On that line stands an old rugged cross. On that cross, a battle is raging for the gain of man's soul or his loss. The earth shakes with the force of the conflict, and the sun refuses to shine, for there hangs God's Son in the balance. And then through the darkness he cries, "It is finished. The battle is over. It is finished, and there'll be no more war. It is finished, the end of the conflict. It is finished, and Jesus is Lord." Yet, in my heart, the battle was raging. Not all the prisoners of war had come home. There were battlefields of my own making. I didn't know the war had been won. Then I heard that the King of the Ages had fought all the battles for me, and victory was mine for the claiming. And now, praise his name, I am free.